Well, good morning. Good morning. It's 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Settling in for an hour yin practice with pranayama. So yin yoga, like yin and yang theories of Taoism, yin is quiet, receptive, non-doing, undoing. And low, cool, and slow. So great time for mindfulness practice, great time for breath practice. Prop usage in yin yoga is about safety, not about comfort. So you might enjoy a couple of blocks, a bolster, a blanket. I may or may not use any of them. Again, it's about safety, not comfort. So a big difference between yin yoga and restorative yoga. While restorative yoga has yin energy, yin qualities, different practice. We're looking to deliberately put some pressure and some tension on various parts of the body. We're going to do more of a well-rounded practice, but we'll spend a little extra time with the side body. So let's start in butterfly position. If you bring the soles of your feet together, a good 2 feet, 18 to 24 inches between your feet and your pelvis. And the initial invitation is to simply bow forward here. If you know that you do not want to sustain forward flexion of the spine for 5 minutes, then simply lay back. And you can work here. Same tug on the inner legs. Not quite as much tug on the outer legs, but you have the boon of neutral spine. So climb on in, supporting head with hands, whether you have elbows on your feet or elbows on a prop. I like to put thumb tips in the inner corners of the eyes, right at the upper inner eyeball socket. I don't need props, so I'm not going to use them. So snuggle into your first shape. And simply feel into what is offered here. I have an eye on the time. Each pose will be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes this morning. And feel into the gentle gathering of the front spine, which is more than just the front surface of your belly, front surface of your torso. That's shortening too, but with your exhales, feel a little gathering of the front body flesh towards the back body. And touch with your awareness and touch with your exhale the front of your spinal column gathering. And with that added touch of frontal spine, a little bit more support with the deep musculature. And please soften and smooth your breath. And imagine a gem or a seed, a glowing sphere, some sort of focal point in your low belly area, just above your pelvic floor. Imagine it there. Place something there with your mind. It can glow. It can have a certain color. Me, it's usually just a bright diamond, and it's going to change shape as we go. I'm going to slide this focal point, let's call it a bindu. So this point of focus, this gem or seed or sphere, it's a bindu, little seed in the body, a seed of mindfulness. And with your next inhale, slide that seed, that bindu, up along the spine, right to the space behind the heart. And maybe hold the breath there for a moment and brighten the heart space. Maybe visualize bright red or a flaming heart or a crystalline chalice holding the heart. And when you need to exhale, Send that bindu down to the low belly again and breathe normal. We're going to visit each organ in pairs. So now next inhale, slide that bindu up, not very high, just to the small intestines, which is paired with the heart in Oriental medicine. And holding the inhale there, and once again, the color is red. The energy is love. The energy is acceptance. The energy is inclusion. The energy is joy. Holding for as long as it feels mostly comfortable. And then when you exhale, return to normal breathing and send the focal point, bindu, back down to the pelvic floor. And then this time, next inhale, sliding that bindu up to the upper right quadrant of your abdomen where your liver and your gallbladder live. Holding the breath there and visualizing the color green, green like spring, new growth, new leaves, where the energy is patience and kindness. When the urge to exhale arises, return the bindu down to the pelvic floor. Breathe normal. Next inhale, slide bindu up to the left quadrant of your abdomen where stomach, spleen, and pancreas abide. The color there is yellow like sunshine, and the energy is fairness, the ability to share, the ability to see the sameness in others, the unity of our existence, the oneness of all things, an even-keeled, even spread kindness and sharing and fairness. And then the exhale, when the urge arises to release that breath, returning to normal breath. With the bindu at the pelvic floor, recognize the bladder. With the inhale, and you slide the bindu up through the bladder, paint it blue, and sliding it up to the space between the kidneys, and then split the bindu in two, and one bindu for each kidney. So we have a triune of both kidneys in the bladder, holding your breath in, bright blue like fresh, clean water. And the energy is nourishment, the energy is wisdom, the energy is insight. And when the urge to exhale arises, sliding it all back down to reunify as one single gem or bindu down in the low belly. And we have one more place to visit. Again, sharing the focus between large intestine and lungs. So feeling into the space of the large intestine that wraps around all the lower abdominal organs, the bladder, the small intestine, the vas deferens, and the ovaries. And bright white. And sliding the bindu up now to behind the heart and split it in two, so one for each lung. And the color is white, and the energy is freedom and spaciousness and the ability to let go, the ability to release what's not needed, and the ability to take in just what is appropriate. Holding the inhale and envision your lungs like pure white dove wings spreading in the morning sun. And then your next exhale to release everything down. Using your hands to draw the torso up and gather your knees right together. And then from here, lay yourself down on your back. And any little squiggling movements that you need to reset, situating my timer. Maybe waggle the feet in and out, maybe stretch the arms up and overhead. And then sweeping both legs over to the right. So if you slide right leg to the right, and then sweep left leg over to meet it. And then I vote you hook the right ankle on top of the left one. So the lengthening side leg is on the bottom. That's my preference. I don't prefer the short side leg on the bottom. But you try, see which one works for you. Pelvis is flat to the floor, and then scooch the torso to the right. So the top of the head is pointing, shining more to the right. So it's a side bend laying on your back. You can put left hand behind your head. I often do that. And then right arm long down by your side. And for about the next 4 minutes, I'd like to work into what's called Viloma 1, where you sip the inhale in phases. So first step here, simply feel into the duration, the span, the breadth, the depth of your inhale breath. And let the exhales flow out in equal measure. Typically what's offered in Viloma 1 is 3 phases. That's completely arbitrary. It's simple, and 3 is a special number for sure, but the ability to feel and channel the breath is more special than the symbology of number 3. So I like to start low, and I'll use my free hand, my right hand, to touch side body and start to slowly pull the breath in. And when you meet any kind of tension or tightness, pause and relax. And then maybe you pull a little bit more in. As the tightness, tension fades, you meet a little more, pause and relax. And simply repeat that until you feel full. When you feel full, pause and relax, and maybe some of that tension dissipates and you can actually sip more in. And then let your exhales be a smooth, soft, slow, steady sweeping to empty. When the next inhale comes, you might need a little bit more oxygen. It might rush in pretty big at first and then pause. So let the breath and your relationship to the breath dictate where you pause and how many pauses. So Viloma 1, putting pauses in the inhale. And I'm going to add one more piece of information. I recommend to not hold the breath with the throat or the tongue, which means you might have a little learning curve here. You might have to renegotiate how you pause the breath. I recommend doing it with the breath muscles. So diaphragm is the main one, the abdominal muscles, the intercostal muscles. So it's like it's a freeze frame of the inhale. You don't change anything to do it. You just pause what's already happening. Throat stays open, tongue stays soft, mouth stays spacious. About 30 more seconds on this side, and we'll go right to the other side, staying with Viloma 1. And in your mind, it could be simply contained in that left lung. Begin to uncross the legs. Slide legs to center, sweep torso to center. Can land still in the middle, or if you need to move about, wiggle, waggle, motor out the pose, go for that, and we'll meet on the other side. So once again, pelvis flat to the floor. Take left leg over to the left and sweep the right leg over towards it. Then placing the left ankle along the right one. So the lengthening side leg, your right leg is on the bottom. And then sweeping torso to the left. Left arm long down by your side, right hand maybe overhead or tucked behind your head. Viloma 1 resumes. So putting pauses in your inhale. So how you position the head can be of service. If you lengthen the back of the neck and allow a little dropping of the chin back into the throat, that can create a tiny little barrier, an edge, a hurdle for the pressure to not creep up into the head when you're going for bigger inhales. Ideally keeping pressure out of the head, pressure from building behind the eyes, soft throat and tonsils. And if you like, use your left hand to feel how much higher in the front body the ribs are. And if you walk your fingertips along the bottom ribs in front, around to the side, notice that the ribs go lower in the side and in the back. And there's all these little delicate muscle connections to the ribs that are touched by breath in this way. And so building the inhales from the bottom to the top, and you insert pauses all along the way. Sometimes I'll pause for each rib, 12 pauses. Sometimes it's just one pause. Still working with Viloma 1. Another 2 minutes here. Can you feel the relationship between the outer surface of your lungs and the inner surface of your ribs? Is the right lung taking up all the space that you've availed for the lung to expand into inhales? Let the exhales flow sweetly out. And in between, if you need normal breaths, take them. So not feeling winded. Staying in relationship with the felt sense of your heart rate. Not letting the heart get too racy, too fast. And then as you're ready, not quite yet, we got about 30 more seconds here. So one more round of Viloma 1. Gently return your torso back to center, squiggling and unhooking the legs. And here in the middle, if you need something other than stillness, do it. Some people need to motor out the intensity. Some people need to just pause and absorb the intensity. And it's good to know what your default is. So we can always check our defaults and make sure that they're still of service and not just some ingrained old habit. We're going to stay on our backs for the next shape. It's a supine twist. So you have a few options here. If you simply have knees bent, feet on the floor, and then tip the knees to the side so the knees are below the hips, it's less of a twist and more of a tug on the side body with a little twist. If you start with the knees falling into the chest and then tip them over, that's a much bigger spinal rotation if your knees are more in line with your hips. You could also add a crossing of one knee over the other. That's going to do a number on the hips, the hip sockets, and create more rotation in the spine. So which leg is on top is also a big factor. If the leg on top is the leg you're turning away from, much bigger twist in the spine. So if you drop knees left with the right leg on top, a significant amount of more rotation in the pelvis. If the left leg's on top, but you tip the legs to the left, it's a less rotation in the spine, a little more tug on the outer hip. So that is all to say, find the supine twist that works best for you. And I'm going to do a gentler one because I like more tug in the outer hip. Supine twist, landing. I'm going to reset my timer. And here now, I'd like to do Viloma 2, which is putting pauses in the exhale. So as we slide into this first supine twist, simply fill the lungs, fill the body with prana, full breaths in. And then exhaling in a slow, steady slide. And every once in a while, pause. Pause the out-breath by way of suspending the movement in the breath musculature down in the abdomen. So keep the throat soft and open. Don't put strain or effort in the throat, generally speaking. And so you add however many pauses to the out-breath that feels interesting, helpful, therapeutic, challenging, however you relate to the breath practice. And especially at the bottom when you're empty, put a pause there. No prescribed number of pauses, simply feel the body's response, challenging the breath musculature, refining your ability to suspend in motion, to relax with sort of devoiding, or what's the word? Like preventing the body from its habitual mechanical maneuvers with breath. So we're putting in these little challenges to our pranic flow and seeing what comes. And especially with the exhale retention, creating a little dissonance in the pranic field. And the story of yoga says that we're awakening those deeper pranic energies like Kundalini and bringing more aliveness in the deeper layers of our pranic body. So last 20, 30 seconds on this side. Sweeping full, complete inhales and slowly regulating the out-breath valve. Using an inhale to return to center. Pause either in stillness or do some movement to cleanse your palate. And slowly transitioning to the second side, other side twist. And you have all the options of how you wish to twist. Resuming, sustaining Viloma 2. So full breaths in and slowly siphon the breath out. There's a myriad of ways. One sort of gross way to look at this is if you exhale, if you regulate the exhales from the bottom up, like letting the belly sort of soften and gather first, versus the ribs. Air goes in and out of the lungs for sure. So at the top of your inhale, your lungs are full, the ribs are open. But the musculature of the belly can change, or the musculature of the ribs can change when you regulate the breath. And in this case, it's the out breath. So explore that for a second. Just drop into that. Are you using the lower belly muscles to regulate the exhale, the abdominal muscles, or are you using the intercostal muscles? And do you have a choice? Now, depending on your personality, your lifestyle habits, your constitution, so many factors will make the releasing of breath or the taking in of breath easier or harder. I have an easier time with inhales than exhales. I'm also more of a fiery constitution, more yang. The inhale is more yang. And so recognizing those patterns in yourself, they could mean nothing, or they could absolutely mean everything. Simply feeling into the reality of what's here now is a good first step. One more minute just like this. I also find on the exhale, Viloma 2, it's easier for me to not use the tongue and throat muscles. So honing the effort, the action in on the low torso, intercostals, the diaphragm muscle, So head, neck, throat, tonsils, tongue all stay soft. This is the final exhale here in this shape. Touch empty, stay with empty for as long as it's mostly comfortable, mildly uncomfortable. And then let the inhale invite your legs to return to center. Swing your knees up, and whatever you need to do here to sort of motor out or reset. And we're going to meet on our bellies for a Sphinx pose. I'm going to use the wall behind me to put my shins up. I'm also going to use a bolster under my ribs. So for Sphinx pose, you could simply have pelvis on the floor, forearms on the floor, keep it real simple. Maybe a block or two to support your chin if you want. This is legit. You could put your head in your hands. You could hook your eyeball sockets on your thumbs like we did earlier. If you have back pain, if back bends are uncomfortable, fold a blanket and put it under your pelvis. Less of a back bend, but still gathering back body flesh, opening front. If you love back bends, like I do, or even more than I do, bolster under ribs and elbows, or two blocks with the blanket on it to bring some lift up to the chest. And I am going to reset the timer and turn my body so I can have my shins up the wall behind me. Putting more shortening in the back body. More lengthening in the front body. We're on the clock. Settle. Allow. Find an appropriate edge. And get quiet. Notice the breath changes depending on the shape you're in. I'm noticing that my breath changes depending on the shape I'm in. Check that out for yourself. The invitation is Viloma 3, which you might know, but if you're paying attention, Viloma 1, pausing inhales, Viloma 2, pausing exhales, Viloma 3 is both. So it's a lot. You could go back to 1 or 2, Viloma 1 or 2, depending on which one was either more comfortable, if you need more comfort, choose that, or which one was more challenging, if you need more challenge, choose that. And here's the skill in the yogi, not what you want, but what do you need? That's a hard discernment, especially in challenging times. So Viloma 3, if you choose it, is more advanced, more complex. Inhale with pauses. Hold at the top. Exhale with pauses. Hold at the bottom. Tongue and throat, tonsils stay soft. You can rest in between rounds, putting normal, easy, unmanipulated breath anywhere in the cycle.
Ideally, the sensation deep in the front or deep in the back, say where your tonsils, the back of your throat is, that energy is going straight up. Tonsils to the heavens, the back of the throat straight up versus back, right? If you're hanging your head, fine. Fine for a while, probably. Could have a whole discussion about hanging the head in asana. For some it's needed, for others not so much. One more minute here. Viloma 3. No prescribed number of pauses. Let the breath enlighten you. To disengage the shape, you could simply lower the upper torso down, whether you're on the floor or over a prop. Eventually finding your way back to child's pose or a down dog if you need it, or something else that helps you digest, release, include, whatever the case. We're going to meet in sitting. Seated forward bend. Asymmetrical. So you could use blanket under your bum to help cantilever the weight more forward. You could also put big prop, blanket, blocks, bolster on your thigh. So we're going towards what you might know as Janu Shirshasana, or in Yin they'll call it half caterpillar. And taking your time to soften into the forward bend. I'm putting blocks on either side of my legs so I could simply let my elbows rest. And I also have the ability here to sort of support my head. And then what I'd like to offer here is one of two things. Either imagining alternate nostril breathing or actually doing alternate nostril breathing. So there's a way in which I can support my forehead on my knuckles or my chin in my hands, and I can use pinkies to channel the breath. Or if I got head on my knuckles, I can use my thumbs to channel the breath. Manipulating, inhaling left and exhaling right, exhaling left. And I'll say that again slower in a minute. But you could also simply imagine. You could imagine you're doing it. So using the power of mindfulness to channel the breath in and out alternate nostrils. So the pattern is either close the right gently or imagine you're closing it and inhale through the left. And then actually or imagine you're closing off the left and exhaling out the right. Inhaling through the right, actual or imagined. And exhaling out the left. How slow you go is up to you. If you're actually closing nostrils way up towards the bridge of the nose, not at the nostril flare, and it's a delicate touch. It's a delicate touch. 2.5 more minutes here. So please keep going another minute or less. And this switching up of air, prana, moving in and out through each nostril does have some relevance to our current modern day scientific knowledge of what the body does, which it regulates one dominant nostril intermittently throughout the day. If you check throughout the day randomly and see which nostril's more open, at key times like before eating or after eating or when you're hungry or when you're sleepy, just start to maybe unofficially track your nostril dominance. And it ties into the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic parts of our nervous system. And then when we consciously manipulate it, like we are now, that we can make that system in our body more efficient. And we can interact with the energies of right nostril, left nostril, or sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, and all the biological implications of that. So let's slowly come up from this side. Switch sides casually, easefully. Reorganize your props, and we're going to resume alternate nostril breathing. This time, if it's going well, adding a pause at the top or the bottom. So whether you're physically channeling the breath with thumbs or fingers, or just in your mind imagining, inhaling with a pause at the top now. If it's going well, again, no throat, tongue, tonsil tightness. Hold the breath with the breath muscles, diaphragm, abdomen, intercostals. And then at the bottom of the exhale, pause there too. So pausing when full and pausing when empty. And as you toggle between full and empty, right and left, I'm reminded of a quote from Nisa Nargata. Nisa Nargata? I think I'm butchering his name. But the quote is something like, "When I know that I am fullness, I am love. And when I know that I am emptiness, I am wisdom. And my job or my work is to move easily between the two." Something like that. So love and wisdom being balanced. Yin and yang being balanced. Sun and moon being balanced. Effort and surrender being balanced. And depending again on habits, lifestyle, constitution, so many factors, we tend towards one over the other. And allowing this slow, quiet, soft, receptive practice to inform, reveal, and mend our imbalances into a balanced state. Last moment here, last like 30 seconds. So, slowly disassembling the shape you're in. We're going to do 2 more yin poses, 2 more asana. And the invitation is symmetrical. So right side, left side doing the same thing. I'm voting for back bend, then forward bend. If you want to end on a back bend, then you switch. So symmetrical back bend could be supported bridge pose, block under your pelvis. Could be another sphinx. Could be seal pose, where it's like a soggy up dog. This kind of thing. Or saddle. Saddle's not for the faint of heart. You might choose a belly down version. Saddle pose is like supine hero, but you're sitting on your heels instead. I'm choosing saddle because it's not that hard for me. So from sitting on the heels, like that's the first step where your knees and your ankles let you. And if the answer is no, don't force it, because that's not yin style. Allowing, right? So you go to your belly if need be. Otherwise, if your knees and ankles let you, move that buttock flesh towards your knees. So you got to tuck all that booty flesh down the backs of the thigh bones towards the knees. And then you could put support behind you, a couple of blocks to lay your ribs and head on, or a bolster if needed. And then what I'd like to do here for breath is some ratios of inhale, holding, exhale, holding. So step 1 is to find a balanced breath print. It's called Samavriti. I'm just getting my timer here. Samavriti means inhales, exhales, same duration. So for simplicity, inhaling for 4 counts and exhaling for 4 counts. How fast you count is everything, right? So however fast you could count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sustain that, whatever it is, or 1, 2,
3, you get the picture. So however many actual seconds, depends on how fast you count. Make it even, in and out even. And I want to overlay that bindu, that little gem or orb or seed that we were moving around in the beginning. Let's bring that here into this breath practice where the bindu starts in the low belly, and as you inhale, you slide it up the front of the spine, maybe all the way to the back of the throat or the third eye. And with the exhale, you slide it down. Same count, same duration, Samavriti, 3 more minutes. Sustaining an even count for minutes at a time, not super easy, so make the count reasonable. Whatever count you've landed on, keep it. And if it's going well, this smooth, sustained, even movement of your prana, yang and yin, in and out. Let's add, if it's okay, if you're not stressed or strained or resisting or grasping, could you hold 1 count at the top? So you inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 4, repeat. Whatever your count is, add 1/4 of a hold at the top. So if you're inhaling for 8, hold for 2, exhale for 8. So 1/4 of the time you're breathing in, hold the breath in. 1 more minute just with that. When you hold the breath, you hold the bindu in place. I like to hold it in my heart and let the lungs saturate. And then the exhale to slide the bindu down to pelvic floor. Gently climbing out of this back bend. If you were belly down, you can simply lower your torso down. If you did a saddle pose, the coming out can be a little dramatic. So ideally you come out the way you went in. You might have to spill onto your side to come on out. So we have 1 more pose, and this is going to take us right to the end. So I recommend a symmetrical forward bend. Or if you just did a forward bend, do a backward bend. So it could be child's pose. Could be legs straight out in front of you. Could be legs up the wall. Could be wide-legged forward bend. Starting now. And staying with that
imprint we just left. So Samavriti, even inhale, exhale, with a quarter hold at the top and adding a quarter hold at the bottom. So if you're using a count of 4, no matter how fast or slow, you inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 4, hold out for 1, and repeat, and using the sliding bendu. Inhaling it from pelvic floor to heart, holding at the heart and lungs, and then exhaling, slide the bindu down, hold it down. So starting with this smaller ratio of holding for the next minute or two. If it's going well, adding another count to the retentions. You could go right for both. If it's going well, inhale 4, hold in for 2, exhale for 4, hold out for 2. Or simply increase the holding of the breath in. Staying with the sliding bindu, so there's the breathing, there's the counting of the breath, there's the sliding of an image with breath, there's the knowing of all these things. So a multi-layered mindfulness breath asana practice for the last minute and a half, 2 minutes. Just this, just this. In the final minute or so of our practice together, so you please stay in the shape. When we conclude, I will invite you to either rest in Shavasana or to stay upright in meditation. And continue into the felt sense of the tissues, your physical body, the pranic body, the breath, your emotional, mental body of the mind turnings, and of the wisdom body, some capacity for insight into all of this, that whatever inconveniences that we're experiencing now are temporary and will either adapt or will die, is the basic down on the ground hardcore truth. There's all sorts of micro versions of that, but it is true, we must adapt or die, and either is possible and inevitable. And as you at this point now, either sit up and lay back and rest, or sit up and stay sitting up for meditating. But I wish for you an easeful, quiet mind. And I wish for you a happy heart. And I wish for you a strong, malleable, and healthy body. And these things that we wish for ourselves, may all beings have happy hearts and easeful minds and resilient bodies. Please keep resting. Please keep feeling and adapting. And be kind to each other. May it be so. Thank you. I love you. Om Shanti. See you tomorrow for somatic movement.